basis. This isn't a GOAT debate. I will spare you all of that. Instead, I ask, which NBA player do you watch and find yourself saying, that guy reminds me of Michael Jordan? No other player in the NBA emulates MJ's game more than LeBron James. A player that has been compared to MJ his entire career, and despite a style of play that appears to be nothing like his, actually possesses a game that is remarkably similar. Wait, I think we're forgetting one player. If I asked you to pick a player who most closely resembles Michael Jordan in today's NBA, who would you pick? There's a few players that come to mind, and we can speculate and conjure up some solid answers. But what if there was a legitimate method to solving this age-old question? What if we used numbers, data, and footage to get down to the bottom of this? The footwork, the shot selection, the defense, the tendencies, the play style, the skill set. All things considered, who is truly the closest thing to Michael Jordan in today's league? Well, let's find out.
Facts. What's up?
In my last video, we took a trip down memory lane and visited the story of Harold Miner, a talented player who came up in the early 90s and was one of many players who was thrusted into the category of next Michael Jordan.
React to that video, man. Shout out to you if you've seen it.
Watch that video, you know how that story ends. Just like the others. And after doing days of research regarding the history of Jordan-like players, I stumbled onto this.
Russell Westbrook. I can't say enough about this gentleman. I am truly a fan of his. If you can ever say, you know, being that we're so many years apart, when I watch him play, I see a lot of resemblance of his passion for the game of basketball the way I play the game of basketball.
Of 450 active NBA players, Michael Jordan is...
Nah, facts. I do see that. I do see that competitiveness, that same intangible nature, you know, that Russ got. And even on the court, but not all, you know what I'm saying, only certain instances, the dunks, some of the dunks, you know, some of the boards.
On record saying that he thinks Russell Westbrook resembles him as a player more than anyone else. In fact, he's mentioned this on multiple occasions. MJ admires the
young Mike. Russ definitely reminds me of young Mike because he really didn't shoot too many long jumpers. You know, really getting the little close shots, pulling up.
Game so much that you think he'd make him the face of his brand.
High for him all the time. That's how Russ be shooting too.
There's no better source than MJ himself, but I want to get down to the bottom of this in a way that goes beyond the eye test. I want to know whose play style is most similar to Jordan. Who has the most similar skill set? Who shoots the same shots and gets the same results as Jordan did? I don't want to know whose greatness resembles MJ's.
Come on, man. Oh yeah, I'm about to say, but I don't think nobody really shoots the same shots and get the same results. Like, it's
get blasted with those lists on a daily basis. This isn't a GOAT debate. I will spare you all of that. Instead, I ask, which NBA player do you watch and find yourself saying, that guy reminds me of Michael Jordan? Well, after spending 4 days scouring through hundreds and hundreds of stat lines, shot charts, tracking numbers, film, combine measurements, anything.
That's a lot of work. He probably got researchers and stuff, but I commend him.
And everything that was related to Jordan's game, I've finally come to a definitive conclusion on who that player is. Well, not exactly definitive, but about as close as we're gonna get. So, where do we start? On Basketball Reference, if you scroll way down near the bottom of a player's profile, you will see a section called Similarity Scores. This chart will show us players with careers that were similar to Jordan's in quality and shape. This should be a good place to start. Huh. Interesting. Well, this list is decent, besides the fact that it cites John Stockton, possibly the least similar player to Michael Jordan in the history of basketball, as a player who is extremely similar to Jordan. And it only features two current...
We talk about in terms of, I don't know. Look what you're looking at though, gang. Win shares. It's not like you're looking at the, you know, looking at win shares.
NBA players.
I don't even know
But
what
then
shit
again,
really
this
is.
list was never intended for comparing style of play, so this
That's
won't
what
be
I'm
of
saying,
any
like,
use. In
facts.
fact, under the explanation of similarity scores, it literally says this method does not attempt to find players who were similar in style of play. So disregard everything I've said over the last 60 seconds and let's move on. In order to get the most accurate answer to this question, it's gonna take some work. A lot of work. So I compiled 20 key attributes from weight
There's a lot of
to
work,
the
bro.
amount of dribbles they take, even the size of their hands, and then compared Jordan's numbers to those of 35 current NBA players that I feel have a game that in some way resembles MJ's. This wasn't easy. It took days, and now my head hurts, but it had to be done. So, before we begin, I want y'all to comment
you
your
got the
prediction
meaner
for the
on
most
there.
similar player to Jordan in today's
Dribbling
NBA.
tendencies, I like that.
Keep in
I like that because Jordan doesn't tend to dribble too much. You know, he's only gonna escape from the defender. and try to
We
go
won't assume the changes MJ would make to his game if he
Clutch
played
this shot
basketball in
selection.
2020. We are strictly comparing every player based on how Jordan played back when he was in the league. The first attributes we ranked were height, weight, and hand size. Only the top 10 most similar players get points for each attribute. So in terms of height, Zach LaVine, DeMar DeRozan, Jaylen Brown, and Klay Thompson all got 10 points. And since there were 9 players that fell within 1 inch of MJ's height, they all tied for 5th and got 6 points each. For weight,
Wow,
Victor
Leonard's only
Oladipo and
6'6".
Devin Booker ended up on top,
Oh, he is
earning
high.
10 points each. Now, one extremely important ingredient to MJ's dominance was something that many fans tend to overlook: the size of his hands. At just 6'6", MJ had hands around the average size for a man who is 7'9". His
Sheesh.
massive mitts were crucial to his ability to control his shot near the basket and, of course, do badass stuff like this. In terms of hand size, Kawhi was number 1 with hands just as big as Jordan's. Next, we looked at scoring, shot selection, and play style. 3 of the most important attributes in this experiment, with a score weighted heavier than other attributes due to their relevance in MJ's game. In the category of scoring, LeBron finished on top, followed by Kevin Durant and James Harden. Jordan was a master of the mid-range jumper, a lost art in today's NBA. So for the attribute of shot selection, we looked at how often a player attempted a shot from mid-range distance. DeMar DeRozan, Chris Paul, and Kevin Durant came out on top here, followed by Kawhi Leonard. Next, we looked at offensive play style, which was a combination of a few different advanced stats, but basically demonstrates how a player chooses to operate on offense. DeRozan, Jimmy Butler, and Kawhi finished in the top 3 here. Next, we ranked players by their vertical leap, an aspect of MJ's game that helped him find success early on in his career. Zach LaVine, Andrew Wiggins, and Victor Oladipo finished on top in this category. But what is a vertical leap if you can't finish at the rim? So next, we ranked players by their finishing ability. In his career, when attempting a shot within 3 feet from the basket, Jordan had a field goal percentage of 68%. Klay Thompson, Kawhi Leonard, and Bradley Beal were the most similar to MJ in this facet of the game. But in some respects, taking a specific shot is less important than what a player does leading up to the shot. So we took a look at how many dribbles MJ took before attempting a jump shot. Michael Jordan was a super efficient player and wasted no moves on his way to a bucket, so most of his jumpers
Facts.
came off of 2 dribbles.
Is that where we get the 3 dribbles or less 1v1 rule from? When we play it's usually when like good players when good players are playing 1-on-1. I ain't gonna lie. When the
When it
trash
comes
players
to
play,
this
people don't
specific
usually
style
do
of
it, but
play, Andrew Wiggins,
when the
Carmelo
good players
Anthony,
play,
and Jimmy Butler are the most similar
three
to
dribbles.
MJ. But
Say that.
the detailed, nuanced stats do not end there. MJ's most defining trait was his ability to be clutch when it mattered most. So to gather information on the clutch attribute, I took a look
Rise
at
to the
each player's
occasion.
shooting percentage in clutch moments. To do this, I used a website called Unpredictable, a uniquely informative site that covers a variation of advanced stats, including clutch shooting. This site defines any game with less than 2 minutes remaining when the game is separated by 4 points or less as the most clutch moments in the game. But we took this one step further and only included clutch shooting in the playoffs. And when it comes to being clutch when it matters most, no current NBA player does it better than Kawhi Leonard, followed by Jason Tatum and Jimmy Butler. This attribute was...
And what's crazy part is, I was thinking about Kawhi. You know what I'm saying? As soon as we started doing this list, because the big hands, I'm like, nah. Kawhi seems like the most, you know what I'm saying? He be doing a little 1-2 dribbles to get to his little shot, you know? Plays defense. I'm telling you.
Also heavily weighted. But one of the more understated aspects of Jordan's game was his defense. A lot of players can go out and get you 30 points, but not many can be the best defensive force on the court while dropping 30 a game. So to factor this in, I took a look at steals, blocks, and all NBA defensive team selections. And again, these aren't the best reference points for finding a player's defensive value, but what these numbers will do is get us closer to finding players with similar defensive tendencies.
That's the problem with numbers, because...
And as I mentioned, many advanced metrics are not available for Jordan's early years, so this is the best we've got. Chris Paul, Kawhi, and Westbrook are most similar to Jordan in the steals department. LeBron, Tatum, Siakam, and Kawhi are most similar to Jordan when it comes to blocks, which is interesting considering all of those players are forwards and have a few inches on MJ. And for all NBA defensive team selections, Chris Paul is most Jordan-like, followed by LeBron and Kawhi. Now these next two attributes are two of the most distinct features of Jordan's game, but also two attributes that are tough to quantify: footwork and demeanor. So for these two attributes, I took the liberty of just grading them based on what I've seen. Not the most reliable method, but it's my video.
But I agree. It's your video and I agree, gang. So what they gonna do? Word. You know what I'm saying? Jimmy Butler demeanor, that's on point. We see it in this year's playoffs. It's proven at this point, man. DeMar DeRozan, his footwork is very nice, you know. That post footwork game, the mid range, you know. He's one of the only players that continues to have that prevalent in his game, man. So.
And who's gonna stop me? When it comes to footwork, I ranked DeMar DeRozan as most similar to MJ, followed by Jason Tatum and Kawhi Leonard. And in terms of Jordan's demeanor, I think of a player who can lead a team, doesn't shy away from big moments, and demands respect from his peers. So here, I had Jimmy Butler, Chris Paul, and Damian Lillard. These two attributes are by far the most subjective aspects of this entire experiment, but I felt that we had to acknowledge them to really get the most insight. For example, Kawhi Leonard plays a lot like MJ, but acts nothing like him. This is important and must be accounted for. Next, I factored in assists, rebounds, and field goal percentage. Three relatively broad statistics, but more important information nonetheless. D'Angelo Russell averages the same exact number of assists as MJ did, followed by Kemba Walker and Derrick Rose. Kawhi, Paul George, and Melo were most like Jordan in the rebounding department, which, just like blocks, is heavily represented by forwards. In fact, only 2 of the 10 most similar players in this category are guards, which goes to show that Jordan was not only versatile, but that he played much bigger than he actually was. And in terms of field goal percentage, KD, Ja Morant, and Kawhi finished top 3. But what are all of these numbers if a player can't lead his team to a win and find success on the way? So the last 2 categories we looked at were winning contributions and accolades. For winning contributions, we simply looked at players with the closest win shares per 48 to Michael Jordan, which were Chris Paul, LeBron James, and James Harden. In the category of accolades, when you combine championships, finals MVPs, regular season MVPs, all-star selections, all-NBA selections, defensive player of the year awards, rookie of the year awards, and scoring titles, MJ racked up a whopping 53 awards throughout his career, which makes LeBron the closest player to MJ in this category, followed by Kevin Durant and Russell Westbrook. And that concludes the ranking of all 20 key attributes. So, who came out as the closest descendant of Michael Jordan?
Okay, before we do this, comment down below who y'all think is going to be right now. Me personally, man. I'm gonna say Kawhi. Let me know in the comments.
Well, there's 2 ways you can answer that question. If we want to approach the answer strictly based off of playstyle, their shot selection, where they work on offense, their specific skill sets, then here are the top 10 current NBA players that most resemble MJ. With DeMar DeRozan topping the list, followed by Kawhi Leonard and Andrew Wiggins. Now this list is factoring in the amount of dribbles they took before getting a shot up, their ability to finish at the rim, footwork, offensive playstyle, shot selection, and steals. This has nothing to do with greatness. And if you ask me, this list is actually really accurate. When I think of players that remind me of Jordan, these are the players that come to mind. In fact, DeRozan has always been regarded as an MJ clone, minus the rings and the overwhelming dominance, of course. If you watch DeRozan operate, it's strikingly similar to the way Michael Jordan did. A few years back, this guy had a pretty interesting tweet that sent basketball fans into a frenzy. I'm not saying he's correct, but when it comes to strictly style of play, this guy makes a good point.
That's a crazy take.
DeRozan plays like an athletic mid-range sniper from 1994 who jumped into a time machine and popped out in 2020 wearing a Spurs jersey. This comparison makes sense, and according to the numbers, it's extremely accurate. But remember, we aren't looking for a player that just plays like MJ. We want to know who is the closest thing to Michael Jordan since Michael Jordan. Who can win like him? Who can get a bucket at will like Jordan, but also can do it in the same fashion? Lock a player down for 40 minutes, but also break a defender down and hit the game-winning shots. Well, after crunching the numbers, here are the most similar players to MJ in today's NBA.
Even for this one.
From crafty point guards to overpowering forwards, no other player in the NBA emulates MJ's game more than LeBron James. A player that has been compared to MJ his entire career, and despite a style of play that appears to be nothing like his, actually possesses a game that is remarkably similar. Wait, I think we're forgetting one player. Oh yeah, there he is. With a similarity score that dwarfs every other current NBA player, Kawhi Leonard is by far the most similar to Michael Jordan.
What about life? What about life? I swear to God, I did not know. I swear to God, yo, I'm telling you, I got the, you know what I'm saying? Come on, man.
Only 5 players cracked a score of 70. Kawhi Leonard has a ridiculous similarity score of 135.5. So if Kawhi reminds you of MJ, there's a good reason. In fact, of the 20 key attributes we took into consideration, Kawhi finished top 3 in 8 of them and top 10 in 15 different attributes.
Like 4 or 5
the shots, the defense, the efficiency, the versatility, the moves they use to create on offense, the ability to step up in the clutch, the lack of
I remember those moments, you heard? I remember those moments, so I'm like, nah, Kawhi might be the one. Kawhi might be the one, man.
Sides of the ball. The similarities are uncanny in many ways. Now, let's take a closer look at this list. Russell Westbrook, a man that Michael Jordan says reminds him most of himself, finished 12th in terms of his similarities to MJ. Zach LaVine, a player that I believe has many similarities to MJ, finished 24th on this list. Donovan Mitchell is another player that reminds me of a young Jordan, and yet he almost had nothing in common with him. But if we take a look at the top 10, it seems that our method of narrowing down an MJ clone was very effective. From spots 10 to 1, the similarities to MJ increase with each player. James Harden reminds us of MJ more than Melo does. Jason Tatum is more similar to MJ than Harden is, and so on. Andrew Wiggins came in at 7th, and I think he might be the biggest sleeper pick in this whole experiment. Although mentally he is the polar opposite of Jordan, their playstyles and skill sets are extremely similar. Although DeMar DeRozan plays most like Jordan, his lack of elite defense and overall production results in him slipping down to 4th in the overall similarity ranking. At one point, Jimmy Butler was speculated to be Jordan's biological son, so his 3rd place finish should come to no surprise. Not only are their games similar, but Jimmy seems to be one of few players that has carried that Jordan mentality into 2020. And with the most surprising finish of all, in my opinion, LeBron coming in at 2nd. A player that seems to have very little in common with MJ's game, and yet after...
Once he started talking about greatness, I knew Brown was going to be up there, because amongst the players in the league, there's not too many that you could talk about
ranking 35 players across 20 different attributes.
Surprised when you see Steph up here.
Finishes behind
like
just one
plays
player.
like Jordan.
But when you think about LeBron's career as a whole, the similarities between him and Jordan are all there. Early on, he
3
was
years
an
ago,
extremely
I ain't
quick,
gonna lie.
athletic wing who could get to the rim
Steph
at
probably would've been
will
on this list
and
nowadays.
played elite defense. As he's gotten older, he tends to turn his back to the basket more often. His mid-range and post-up game have been refined, and he doesn't rely
Facts.
solely on extreme production to get the job done.
Mismatch with LeBron and MJ, got it. But if y'all enjoyed, I know what to do, man. Share the video with your peoples on your social media platforms, whatever it is. Click on the last reaction, like the video, comment, subscribe, and I'm out there, man.